This is our castle. Our bones are the bricks and our blood is the mortar.
Hello and welcome everyone. I am Coach Castle, and today I'll be doing a comparison of compound versus isolation movements. In particular, I'll be addressing the squat. So, let's go ahead and get into it. To begin with, a person who is unfamiliar with biomechanics might assume that exercises which allow them to lift a heavier weight would produce more mass or larger muscles. But this is an incorrect and unscientific assumption, not based in fact. I would also like to add that you use science in your everyday life consciously or unconsciously, almost on a moment-to-moment basis, unquestionably. That is because it improves and makes life more efficient. The human body is essentially a machine that is made up of levers or bones, pulleys or muscles, and pivots or joints. Therefore, every movement and every force placed upon this human machine is quantifiable and should be evaluated exclusively on the basis of physics and natural human motion, or biomechanics. The fitness industry has been biased for years in favor of certain power or compound movements that have been revered throughout the ages, but can easily be discredited by way of biomechanical analysis. The fitness industry has been biased for years against isolation exercises, even though these movements allow for each joint and muscle to operate in a perfect and natural way. They also allow more efficient loading of an individual target muscle as compared with compound exercises and reduce the risk of damage. When all skeletal muscles are individually strengthened, a person's total body strength is every bit as useful and functional as it would be if those muscles were strengthened by ways of a compound exercise. But with far less time spent on training, far improved recovery ability, far more efficient gains resulting from maximally activating your muscles. No skeletal or joint damage or discomfort, and less central nervous system stress. So, as an example, let's talk squats in terms of efficiency.
The target muscles are the quadriceps femoris and gluteus maximus, colored red. Active joints, knee, hip, and ankle. Keep your back straight when you squat, neutral spine position. The tibia remains in line with the straight back. Posterior view of the gluteus maximus, colored red, which performs hip extension, and the spinal erectors, light brown, which stabilize and fix the spine. As in full squat, in the parallel squat, we'll place the feet into slight external rotation.
Squats specifically as a quadriceps exercise. So, the primary objective when performing weighted squats is to work the quadriceps, followed closely behind by the glutes. So the questions you have to ask yourselves are, how active is the lower leg as the operating lever of the quads, and the upper leg as the operating lever of the glutes? Well, the tibia, or the lower leg bone, is tilting forward about 30 degrees from vertical, 60 degrees, during a standard back squat. So this would translate to about a 33% tilt, or 30 divided by 90 degrees. Therefore, we could say that the tibia is working with about 33% efficiency. The femur, or the upper leg bone, is slightly below horizontal. So, this lever could be called a 100% lever. The torso is tilting about 30 degrees from vertical, 60 degrees. Therefore, we could say this lever is also about 33% active. 30 divided by 90. The higher the percentage of active a lever is, the greater the percentage of the available resistance that will be loaded onto the muscle that operates the lever. Keep in mind, however, that the available resistance also factors in the length of the lever. For this reason, the glutes are not getting quite as much benefit from a squat as it would appear. Now, even though the femur is 100% active when in the descended position, like above, it is being effectively shortened by the doubling back of the tibia, where it folds over itself. So, the glutes are working with a femur that is operating with about half its actual length in this scenario. Therefore, the femur is delivering 100% of a reduced loads to the glutes. The tibia is about 33% efficient in the descended position of the squat, so it is only loading approximately 33% of the available resistance onto the quadriceps. So, if you like, let's do a math. Stay with me for a moment. Let's say a man is squatting with 225 pounds on his back. His primary goal is to work his quadriceps, followed closely behind by his glutes. His body weight is 200 pounds, but only 3/4 of that is the weight above his legs. So, let's figure that he is effectively squatting 150 pounds of his body weight, plus his body weight is 200 pounds, but only 3/4 of that is the weight above his legs. So, let's figure that he is effectively squatting 150 pounds of his body weight plus 225 pounds. That'll give us 375 pounds total. Since his tibia length has a magnification factor of approximately 20 times, we'll multiply 375 by 20. This will give us a total of 7,500 pounds, and then multiply that by his 33% lever efficiency factor. It brings it down to 2,475 pounds total. Now you divide that by his 2 legs, which then equals 1,238 pounds per quadricep using that lever. This may sound like quite a lot load on each quadricep, however, as we'll soon see, is not as much load as it could be, and the energy cost is also much higher than it should be. The forward tilt of his torso is like that of the tibia, so it is effectively active as the lever that loads the quads. However, his torso is a longer lever than his tibia, so it is magnifying the resistance more than the lever that load the quads. The barbell is resting at the very top of the torso lever, allowing the entire length of the torso to be magnifying the forward force of the 225-pound barbell. This means that his erector spinal, the muscle operating the torso level, are loaded more than are his quads, even though this exercise is not meant to be an erector spinal exercise. So here's where we should ask, isn't there a way of getting a greater percentage of the available resistance to load onto the quads and less onto the erector spinal and the spine? Simple answer is yes. Simply by changing the direction of the resistance so that the tibia, or the lower leg, interacts more perpendicularly with resistance than it does during barbell squats. So, to make it even simpler, let's look at another example that uses a fully active lever for the quads rather than a 33% active lever. We'll talk about leg extensions.
In order to achieve optimal exploitation of the resistance movement, our knees should face the axis of the drive wheel. In knee extension, all 4 heads are active. In the left side, we see movement in an open kinematic chain, where the legs are free to move. In the right, we see the movement is a closed kinematic chain, where the legs are fixed and not free to move. Therefore, if we use intense force, it will be knee extension that elevates the body.
Leg extensions on a leg extension machine, as it applies, its resistance is 100% perpendicularly against the lower leg, making the lower leg a 100% active lever. So, if one is using only 150 pounds, 75 pounds per ankle, it would load each quadricep with 1,500 pounds total approximately. Compare that to the 1,238 pounds each quadricep would be getting when squatting 225 pounds, and consider the difference in cost between the two. Leg extensions are much more efficient at delivering load to the quads because less weight used still equals more load on those quads. You see, the reason why a person is able to squat with so much weight is precisely because of the inefficiency of the tibia angle, 33%, combined with the shortened femur length caused by the doubling back of the lower leg. You're folding your levers. If the goal is simply to move the most amount of weight, even though it doesn't load any of the muscles involved as efficiently as possible, then by all means doing heavy squats and leg presses and deadlifts are fine, as you're simply doing them to stroke your ego. But for the purpose of building muscle, it would be much wiser to use the better mechanics. You can load the target muscles more with less weight and put less stress on the bones, joints, and non-targeted muscles, meaning no muscle soreness, quicker recovery, no damage to your joints, no damage to your cartilage or your spine, no lower back pain, no shoulder discomfort. The list is endless.
one of the things I tell young men, well, and young women as well, but the young men really need to hear this more, I think, is that you should be a monster. You know, because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You know, you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. It's like, no.
There's people in here far superior than me. But there's no one in here that's going to work harder than me.